just say. There's no pretending about it. Nobody should. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Tune in to Ground Zero on UBC Radio. We discuss politics.
The money we collect as taxes in the country, we lose it in corruption.
Economics.
The 4 economic sectors where their jobs and wealth are: commercial agriculture, industries, services, and ICT.
Education.
The classes which will not need an abridged curriculum are the entry-level classes of P1, Senior 1, and Senior 5.
Culture and religion. And other areas of human interest. Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio. Don't miss. Don't miss UBC Radio Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We host credible and relevant guests to discuss pertinent issues of national importance aimed at addressing people's concerns.
As a country, if we don't fight this vice of corruption seriously and with honest opinion without any bias, things will not be good for us.
UBC Radio Ground Zero, right here on UBC Radio.
UBC, ensure that the information you give out is factual but also objective, balanced, and complies with the legal and policy requirements for the media.
Ground Zero program is always live, loud and clear, every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio, Butebo FM, West Nile FM, and Magic 100 FM, and live stream on YouTube. You can also listen to the repeated broadcast of UBC Ground Zero every Sunday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
Welcome to Ground Zero Season 2, a show that brings you in-depth discussion ranging from politics, health, finance, sports, and so much more. Ground Zero Season 2.
Hello dear listener, you're most welcome to this edition of Ground Zero. We're broadcasting live on UBC and in Kampala we are on 98 FM. In Arua you can get us live on 97.4 FM, and we're also live and clear on Butebo Radio where you can get us in Mbale on 96.9 FM. In Soroti we are live on 98.4 FM. In Arua we are live on 95.5 FM, and we're also live on another radio station popularly known as West Nile FM, where you can get us on 98.0 FM, which covers Western Nile sub-region, Teso sub-region, Karamoja sub-region, Lango and Acholi sub-regions, and northern parts of this country. We are also live and clear on another radio station called Magic 100 FM, which is covering central parts of this country. We are also live on UBC, your number one public and national broadcaster, which covers all Uganda, border to border, city to city. We are live and clear, and I must thank you for making us your number one radio station and UBC Ground Zero as your most favorite radio program. Ampaire Amon Obtega is my name. It is a very indeed a big privilege and honor that you have joined us also today. We're going to talk about something important and something sensitive. This is something that concerns every person in this country and the region of East Africa and Africa. We're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about food security. We're going to talk about food production. We're going to talk about opportunities that we see in our agriculture, and the challenges that we have faced as a country. We're going to discuss the noble role of the farmers who support the lives of the people of Uganda and the East Africans to live a better life. Without farmers, we are without food, and without food, we are without life. Today we're going to talk about life, and we're going to talk about food. We are discussing the theme of this year, as we're expecting to celebrate the World Food Day, which is taking place tomorrow on 16th. And in Uganda, I believe it is going to be at Namrongo Agriculture Center, where Ugandans will join the rest of the world to celebrate this wonderful day. In Uganda, the central part of this country, they always say, Gavamukulia, that energy comes from eating. But we know that we eat food, meaning without food we don't have life. Of recent past, if you have been following the news, most people in some parts of this country are lacking food. We are going to reach a point where Ugandans are going to be dying, suffocating. Not that they are losing oxygen, but they are lacking food. And of recent past, Uganda was known to be the source and the basket of food. What was normally known as the basket of food, people are dying of hunger. We have reached a point where we have started importing food from our neighboring countries, yet we thought that Uganda would be leading in providing food for other countries. The venue, as I said before, is going to be at National Crop Resource Research Center, where it is at Namlonge. I am glad and privileged that I have been joined by a special team of guests who are going to discuss important issues of national building, of national importance, but they are also going to discuss our concerns, the people's concerns, especially that emanate from the sector of agriculture. It is a big privilege to have you, Dr. Kamganga Dick, the President of Uganda National Farmers Federation. Most welcome on UBC Ground Zero.
Thank you, Amon. I'm privileged to be here, and good morning, listeners. Happy to be with you on this platform.
Interesting. You're most welcome. We also have a big privilege to have Dr. Mkure. Samuel is the Technical Operations Manager from Sekaja Agrofarms Limited. Most welcome to UBC.
Thank you, Amon. Good morning, listeners. It's a privilege being here and looking forward for the deliberations.
Interesting. As I said before, we are discussing the theme for this year, Save Food Today for a Healthier Tomorrow. And we are saying that leave no one behind. Save food today for a healthy tomorrow. Leave no one behind. We are live and clear on UBC Radio. We are also live and clear on Butebo Radio. We are also live and clear on Nile Radio and Magic 100 FM. You can as well get us live on YouTube. You just put UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of this conversation. Later on, you're going to join the conversation on 776-511-426 is the number that you will call and be part of this conversation. Let me start with you, Dr. Dick Kamganga. What is about the Uganda National Farmers Federation? What do you do? Where are you based? And how can Ugandans benefit from your federation? Doctor?
Thank you, Amon. Once again, let me take this opportunity to greet our listeners and introduce myself to them, the entire country. My name is Dr. Dick Kamuganga. I am the president of Uganda National Farmers Federation. Uganda National Farmers Federation is the largest farmers organization in the country. It is the organization that was started by the farmers, for the farmers, and in 1992. We are now 30 years old. In January 1992, under the auspices of the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, we practically call ourselves, we call the Ministry of Agriculture a mother ministry to our organization. We have presence in almost all the original districts in the country. That is approximately within 105 district farmers associations across the country. But we also have the original districts have their, we call them children DFAs, the DFAs that are mothered by the original districts. Due to decentralization, we have not been able to run at the same pace at which the government has been creating new districts. But by the turn of the National Development Plan 3 in 2025-26, we shall be across the entire country. That category of district farmers associations is what we call our primary members. Then we have also the commodity association members, like those in coffee, those in honey, those in bananas, and the like. Then we have professionals. We have agrochemical industry here. And then the finance and the insurance companies. Financial companies and insurance companies. Those constitute our membership. Mr. Moderator, the key main functions are 4. Number 1, we mobilize ourselves. Number 2, when I say ourselves, I mean the farmers. And largely the organization is skewed towards smaller scale farmers, smallholder farmers. But we embrace the entire farming sector, big and small. We have new members who are coming from northern Uganda, for instance, and including foreign membership. Then 2, after mobilizing ourselves, we organize ourselves into farm groups, enterprise groups, and area cooperative enterprises. Then 3, we empower ourselves. We are catalysts of technology take-up. We partner with other organizations like Nile, the Ministry of Agriculture Extension Directorate, to empower smallholder farmers. Empower is capacity building. Empower is teaching on and accelerating technology uptake. And then 4, we coordinate. We coordinate with the ministry. We coordinate with other partners. We coordinate with, for instance, World Food Program. We coordinate with the Food and Agriculture Organization. We coordinate with an entire landscape of partners to ensure that the smallholder farmer, the farmer, is given rightful services and empowered to empower himself, as so they say. 5th or 4th, we speak for. We speak for all categories of farmers. Speaking for is what technical people can call lobby and advocacy. We do the lobby and advocacy. We do speak, interact with members of parliament. We interact with the policymakers to ensure that the environment is conducive for farming in the country. We speak to Ministry of Agriculture in a collaborative way, such that the interests of the farmers, the issues of the farmers are brought forward on national agenda, on a regional agenda, and international agenda. Because of this speaking for, Uganda National Farmers Federation is a member of the World Farmers Organizations in Rome, is a member of the East African Farmers Federation in Nairobi, and we also sit on a number of policy committees in the country. I am part of the Extended National Planning Authority Board. and I sit on various committees, including also other farmers that represent other farmers in different capacities across different policy committees in the country. I thank you.
Most welcome, and thank you for that detailed introduction about what you do and what is about Uganda Farmers Federation. I'm glad that you are able to do all that. Hope you put it in action, as you put it well in the words. Dr. Mkure, Technical Operations Manager in Sekaja Agro Farms Limited. What do you do? Where are you based? How are you helping farmers in Uganda?
Thanks, Amon, and listeners. Once again, good morning. My name is Samuel Mukule. I'm a veterinarian by profession, working with Sekaja Agro Farms, where I oversee the technical operations. Sekaja Agro Farms is a vertically integrated poultry company. By vertical integration, our sole purpose is to make sure we produce safe chicken meat for the Ugandan population. However, we produce the chick for ourselves, raise the chick through its rearing period in our farms. Then we take the chicken to the abattoir where we slaughter in a proper manner under oversight of UNBS, which inspects the abattoir and gives the quality assurance mark, which is the Q mark. Then we transport the chicken and sell it through our various outlets. Currently, our head operations are situated at Chitetika along Gayaza Road, and we have farms in 6 sites in Mukono districts, Mukono, Wakiso, and Luero district. We work alongside a number of small-scale farmers, chicken farmers in the country, who produce chicken and sell to us to subsidize our volumes to make sure we have a constant supply. Also, on the side of the feed mill, we purchase a lot of raw materials from the crop farmers, mainly maize and soya, and we also buy a lot of inputs from the agro dealers in Uganda, which we use in making quality feed for the chickens. That's about Sekaja Agro Farms.
Interesting. We are discussing the theme for this year, Save Food Today for a Healthy Tomorrow. And we are saying, leave no one behind. Let me start with you, Dr. Kamganga. We don't have food today. We have started even importing food from our neighboring countries. If we save food today, even when we don't have it, is it that possible to have a healthy tomorrow?
I am not sure that it is accurate to say that we don't have food today in Uganda. We actually have plenty of food. A credit should be given to the government of Uganda and the farmers for the last 5 years or so. Since 2013, there are interventions that have triggered bumper harvest. Of course, there are episodes of low production due to drought and hailstorms that have happened for instance, in recent months in some parts of Onkore. And then, of course, you're going to bring the episode of Karamojo. There are other structural economic constraints that would lead to an issue like that of Karamoja. But overall, the entire country, we produce sufficient food. If there could have been a distribution mechanism that allows the food to reach all the corners of the country. I am a dairy farmer, and we have seen an upsurge, for instance, of dairy production across the country in the last 10 or 15 years. So the issue of food access should be the clear definition here of what is the observed food scarcity, not necessarily the issue of food production. That said, if we want to achieve a healthy tomorrow, I think I invite the public policy actors to look at the universal. When I mean universal, I mean within the country of Uganda, universal distribution or access of food to everyone. Otherwise, there are missed opportunities here. Parts of the country need the food, and parts of the country are producing excess food, but they do not have sufficient returns on their investment markets. You will hear farmers complaining, and I'm sure our Sekaja, is that right? The right name? They will tell you the market for their eggs or the market for their chicken is not where. Yet some parts of the country there is starvation. So this is entirely an issue of accessibility, an issue of the distribution system, not an issue of production. Uganda is blessed with food production that now the planners need to focus on distributing the food that is well produced within the country. But we also need to add that even the areas that are suffering from food deficiency now, like the Karamoja, it is potentially capable of producing sufficient amount of food for its people. And so we invite our partners and the government, specifically the Ministry of Agriculture, to examine the potential remedies for such episodes of food inadequacy in that part of the region. I would say that overall, based on the trends for the last at least 9 years, we are in a direction of a country that is food sufficient. If we handled some structural problems that have brought a few episodes over there. Now, there is also another advantage that is coming with National Development Plan 3 that is focusing on agro-industrialization. We have lost a lot of food as farmers through post-harvest losses. Agro-industrialization means we will be value-adding on our products. And a part of the major component is to prevent post-harvest losses. So this is an opportunity in which a healthy society will be attained if we continue the path, and especially where the government is directing resources in agro-industrialization. The second most important policy intervention that is going to be an opportunity for the country in terms of healthy food, safe food, and food security and nutrition security is the idea of the parish development model. Now government interventions are coming closer to the households. We are looking at more than 3.5 million households being reached through the parish development model. What we expect these interventions is a bumper harvest, and we should be preparing for structural handling of overproduction, because resources are coming directly to household level and support. We have also seen the new Minister of Agriculture who has intervened in a number of ways, reaching out to government agencies to produce a lot of grain and pulses, and also intervened with commercial farmers. Yesterday he was meeting with the Grain Council of Uganda. All these efforts are intended to accelerate the production of food in the country to avert crises that we witness in some regions of the country like Karamoja.
Interesting. I'm glad that you are encouraging the people of Uganda, not actually encouraging them, but giving us the assurance that there is food. Mkure, you have heard from the president of Uganda Federation.
Farmers Federation
is assuring Ugandans that we have plenty food. Are your people in the villages not complaining for the lack of food?
It's true, and I agree with him. The matter in Uganda is not unavailability of food, but rather the access to food. I'll give an example of the chicken industry where we play. If you look at currently in Uganda, in a week for broiler chicken, the farmers are able to produce a minimum of 400 broiler chickens in Uganda, but most of them are distributed in Kampala, Wakiso, and Mukono, which is the greater Kampala. And now it's just moving out to the big towns, the recently created cities. You look at Jinja, Mbarara, and Arua. For that reason, the overproduction in Kampala, at some points you get that the farmers fail to sell because what they produce is more than what the market can take. So then they end up dumping their produce to the market at a low price and then run out of production in the next cycle. So the other factor we are looking at is for the crop farmers, with the increase in the production of animals and feed production, the feed industry is able to take more than half of the maize that is produced in Uganda. But the biggest challenge is the quality of the maize, which is mainly due to the post-harvest handling. So it doesn't meet the basic minimum standards for use even in animal feeds. However, like my colleague has mentioned, the interventions coming up with the parish development model, we hope that our farmers will be helped, and then grain holding facilities will be produced such that we are able to hold the feed, the produce, like maize that is too seasonal, hold it at harvest such that it can be sold at a more stable price across as we wait for the next season. So in my opinion, I concur with him. Uganda will never have scarcity of feed.
Have you not heard from the people of Kasese who have been starving, the Karamojong who have been starving, and people are looking for food from all corners to help our fellow Ugandans have at least a meal, at least a single meal in a day?
Yeah, I've heard about that. The truth of the matter is Kasese is affected by the floods. Karamoja was hit by the droughts. But areas like Mubende, Masindi, and the greater northern Uganda produce a lot of food, and they sell it at a very cheap or giveaway price. If we look at commodities like maize and soya grain, for instance, a farmer in northern Uganda will sell a kilogram of soya at 1,800 shillings at the moment. But when you get into Kampala, it's sold at 2,000, maybe 800. So that's 1,000 shillings difference. Okay. However, northern Uganda is way close to Karamoja. So if there were means of distribution of the food that we produce, it would be much easier for us to solve the problem. It's more of access, like he said.
The country that is having full basket of food, but the prices of food are increasing day by day, or even hour after the other. The other day we had rice at 3,000, now it has gone to 4,500 a kilo, and posho was at 2,000, it is now getting to 5,000. Where is this taking us in the few months to come?
I think looking at the positive side, since this is planting season was done, the rains have been a little favorable. Hopefully by January, it's going to be harvest. The big challenge is, like you mentioned, we expect a bumper harvest. We do not have the capacity. The farmers do not have the capacity to handle what they harvest well, such that it can take us through the period to wait for the next harvest. So I think efforts must be put on post-harvest handling and availing possibly better storage facilities. Okay. That will help stabilize the prices.
All right. Dr. Kamgang, I'm glad that you're a leader of the farmers. And the farmers are the ones that are feeding not only the towns, but also the villages. I mean the entire country. Food is becoming expensive in the cities, and the villagers who are the farmers have also started to buy food with the increasing food prices, are we not seeing the scarcity in the near future and the crisis? And that should worry every person before we get that bump harvest.
Thank you. Agriculture is seasonal, number one. Number two, unfortunately, we've been gifted by nature, such that we've been used to agriculture that is supported by nature. But that has a limit, and that limit has triggered government to intervene. You have seen, if you've been following the Ministry of Agriculture, and even the President of Uganda has initiated a number of irrigation schemes across the country, micro irrigation schemes, to ensure that we avert the problems relating to nature-oriented agriculture. I was privileged to be hosted the other day in this UBC, your sister branch on TV, and said that in Nkore we have a proverb, what it means, somebody who's coming from underground cannot despise the level of sunshine he finds on the surface. Similarly here, we have to appreciate the constraints. If you are a household, you have a budget constraint. You have to allocate the little income you have to a number of competing needs. That's what is economics about. You have so many competing needs, and therefore you have to allocate your budget. The government has been allocating resources to avert the dependency on natural rains for production. But as I began by telling you that agriculture is seasonal, there are good seasons and there are bad seasons. And because of these bad seasons, there are episodes of famine in different parts. And because of these bad seasons, there is low production relative from the rest of the trend of production. And when there is low production, there will be high demand for food. Since the human beings, we are still the same amount of human beings that have been there. We don't change seasonally, except with a number of births. But when births take some time before they start eating solid food. So demand increases, and once demand increases, then you have high prices for the food. High prices are opportunities for the farmers, despite the fact that they will be discomfort for the consumers.
So you are glad that we're having this increase in prices of food?
I would say partly yes and partly no. For internal market, of course, the households that we depend on are the households that are going to be buying the food. So high prices internally, they will increase poverty, especially the urban poor. But if it is because of external markets, that is export, that is good income for the country. So I would encourage external high prices for the food, but I encourage low prices for within domestic market. So how do we achieve domestic low prices? Is to remove the structural constraints to the flow of food from one region to another. I am sure, as my colleague explained, different parts of the country, the maize, the sorghum, the staples, some of the staples are abundant in some parts of the country and scarce in some parts of the country, or especially for some parts of the country that have been affected by the nature, by the tyranny of nature, like floods and droughts. So overall, there are specific efforts, as I mentioned, that have been initiated under the auspices of the Ministry of Agriculture. Right now, the entire Ministry of Agriculture is overseeing an intervention in which more than 500,000 acres of land are being put under production. I can give you an example. NARO is involved. The National Agricultural Research Organization, land across the country is underutilization. Uganda prisons is putting over 50,000 acres of land under utilization.
They're doing a good job.
You are seeing Nagrik. Nagrik is also putting all its land under utilization for feed production for animals. We are seeing Uganda UPDF. UPDF is putting all its land under its use. I've also told you, under the rubric of Uganda National Farmers Federation and Grain Council, we are in conversation with the ministry also to be able to put everybody who is interested to work with the ministry, and the 50 acres of land can be put under support of government to produce. So the national plan for food security is in the pipeline, and it takes some time. You don't. It is not like you go into supermarket and pick a bag of Irish potatoes and go home. It takes a minimum of 120 days for Irish to become mature for eating. Same with the lowest that the early maturing crop is going to be vegetables. They are going to take between 45 and 90 days. So in the 90 days, unfortunately, famine cannot be ruled out. So I think there is need to appreciate the effort, but we're also learning lessons from all these episodes. We're learning lessons, and the lessons that will ensure, like right now as we speak, there is a revival of strategic storage food reserves across the country, some supported by government, but some supported by NGOs, some supported by World Food Organization and FAO, and we ourselves, the farmers. So I think that efforts being put on the table to address the famine situation.
Interesting. As you put it before, that agriculture is supported by nature, but we must also know that nature is itself dynamic. How are you helping farmers to adopt to other options, not depending on nature? Because climate change has so much challenged us and affected the production of food. Can we tap into other opportunities? As the leader of farmers, have you in any way engaged farmers to engage in other options?
Thank you. We are working with a number of partners. I mentioned to you one of our major responsibility is empowerment. It's capacity building. Let me first put this question in perspective. We have 4.5 million farming households across the country. 4.5 million farming households, if you put an average of 6 members or 5 members, those are around 20 million farmers around the country. And these, even if we stick to the farming households, for an organization like mine, whom we have 25 staff, of course, with a few other staff distributed at the districts, our capacity to handle the issue of empowering every farming household to take care of the environmental conditions is overwhelming. But nonetheless, we have projects that have been focusing on the following: climate smart agriculture, partnering with agencies, both resident agencies and non-resident agencies. When I say resident agencies, we have international NGOs here, we have government agencies here, we have especially, I sit on the committee on water for irrigation, water for production in the Ministry of Water. We have different sites across the country that are supposed to be supporting micro irrigation. We have natural water harvesting projects spread across the country to ensure that farmers harvest water, and this water they can use for their own crop production. We lead in advocating for agricultural practices that ensure preservation of water, including mulching and the like. So our technical staff across the country, especially district coordinators across the country, are involved in every effort that empowers a farmer to ensure that they look after their gardens with a view to prevent the adverse effects of climate.
Okay.
Nonetheless, we are also seeking partnership now with international, especially with climate funds that are, we're seeking funds and engaging in a number of things, including tree planting to reverse the desertification or the side effects of harsh environment.
All right. Interesting. Allow me engage you on food quality. The quality of food that Ugandans feed on every day and every other night. Mukule, we have chemicals, we have new diseases coming up, we have fertilizers, we have everything that we use available for us to make sure that we have production, regardless of what we are producing. Where does this leave the lives of the people of Uganda? Can we look at food quality? Emukure?
All aspects of food quality are dependent on the systems of production and the handling of the food throughout the value chain from the producer to the final consumer. Yes. Let's start with the chemicals. Most chemicals, which in medical terms may be referred to as drugs, when used well, will not elicit any adverse effects. One of the greatest challenges we have both in crop and animal production now is the land has been utilized and we are interfacing a lot with things that were not interfacing, that used to be in the wild. So we are seeing a lot of diseases both in crop and animals, and the remedies may be currently, since we can't abandon to utilize the land and we can't reverse the interface, much as we can reduce, as you mentioned, smart farming, we can use certain chemicals, but those that are allowed, like in crops we have pesticides, and in animals we have acaricides and medicines, but they must be used under supervision or direction of a professional. The country currently has enough professionals. They may not be accessible to the farmers through the public domain, but private sector is available. The challenge is the farmers are more now of internet farming or word of mouth farming. I meet doctor here and he tells me I'm using such a thing in my animals. This is how I'm using it. He's a fellow farmer and I take his advice for it is. If it doesn't work, we become curious and either double the dose or mix. That creates a risk. The plea to the farmers is let's utilize professionals when we are using the chemicals. With diseases, same thing both in crop and animals. We have professionals who are able to identify what specific disease it is in your animal or crop and what solutions they are. There are some diseases, especially the viral diseases, they are not treatable, but if you don't have advice from a professional, you may end up misusing medicine. I'll talk more on the chicken because we are more involved in chicken production. There is a misconception that broiler chicken is raised with chemicals, and so it's not safe for consumption.
I was about to ask you that. Most of the people I've heard that you people who are in poultry keeping are feeding us with chicken that is old 6 or 7 days because of the chemicals, I think.
I think that is one of the misconceptions we would love to change in the public domain. If you look at Ugandan poultry sector, we have over 50 million chickens, of which 80% of those are local chickens, which take about 6 months for you to be able to slaughter. Now, the fact that the population is growing, the need for food is increasing, we need to move from the traditional systems of agriculture to more intensive systems of production. And that means we need to select fast-growing animals. In chicken, that is the broiler. I think my colleague here, who is a dairy farmer, will tell us that if someone in Ankole had a fast-growing bull, everyone would want to have that bull produce them a progeny in their farm. Am I right? That is because it has the good traits. Now, the broiler chicken has been selected for its fast growth, and its maturity period as of now is 6 weeks as opposed to 6 days. Yeah. We've done trials. You pick a local Ugandan chicken, then a modernized local chicken, which is locally called the croiler, and a broiler chicken, feed them on the same feed, and you still need about 5 months to eat the local chicken. So there is a lot of change that needs if we are to match the growing population in terms of production, the systems and selections. The other thing that scares people about the broiler chicken, like you mentioned, is the feed. Broiler or chicken feed, commercially manufactured feed, is entirely made from acceptable raw materials. For instance, chicken feed is 70% maize grain and 30% soya. The rest of the things that are added that you may fear are chemicals are purified extracts from feed in form of amino acids that the body cannot manufacture as quickly as possible to meet the growth. So we need to assure the public that the chicken is safe for consumption. It's produced entirely based on its fast growth. There are no chemicals that influence. However, just like in crop farming, I have met people in the industry who dupe farmers into selling them. I think, Doctor, you should have had something called Supergrow. It's a hormone, a chemical that is used to fasten growth in crops. So what they do, they come and tell you that this fastens growth. It's a matter of faith and chance. Sometimes the buds grow because they are supposed to grow. They really don't have influence. Fact to note is their medicines, for instance, antibiotics, a basic tetracycline, can fasten growth, not by increasing the bud's ability to grow, but by helping it reserve some of the food that it would use to fight diseases. However, controls, like currently in Uganda, the Uganda National Bureau of Standards does tests on commercial producers. We have about 6 slaughter plants in Uganda, and each of them must have a quality mark, and they pick samples without alerting you, and they do checks for antibiotics. So the public should be aware the chicken that is on the market, if it has come through the right channels, it is safe for consumption. The aspect of disease, as you are aware, even in the humans, we've had a severe disease outbreak in 2019-2020. COVID came in. Similarly, during the same period, we had a lot of challenges with avian influenza that hit Europe. Fortunately, it has not come to Africa. I must say farming in Africa, like you mentioned, we are reliant on nature, and it's more by the will of God. And I think we've survived through the same way we survived with COVID, and it's only a matter of time. There are remedies to prevent disease. In farming, we call it biosecurity. That means you do things and follow procedures that make sure you don't get disease outbreak, or if a disease outbreak happens, just like the Ministry of Health did with quarantine and the safety precautions during COVID, similar are available for farms that help you prevent further spread of disease. So if we adopt a mindset change towards farming to meet the population needs and change our production systems, we should be well. It's good to inform the country that in chicken farming, there are currently technologies where we can control the environment of the house, irrespective if the weather is hot, you maintain the temperature, and Sekaj Agro Farms owns 4 of such facilities. I know about 4 players in the market that own such facilities, and that gives us assurance that we will be able to produce for the country safe chicken throughout the year. Now, the risk we face is for input, which I think the Farmers Federation, through cooperatives and post-harvest handling, will solve.
Okay. Yes. Maybe at Sekaja, you might be that professional and minding about your clients or consumers, what they eat, in as far as food quality is concerned. But you also must know, and I've heard very often, that Xeroxin, and Meralin and other pesticides, which are chemical used to manufacture plastics, have been put into the chicken feeds, and that puts the a big risk to the lives of the consumers. But you to help, because you are in this really industry or sector, me the consumer who doesn't know melalin, who doesn't know lazoxin, who doesn't know all the chemicals that are used in chicken feeds to make them grow in 2 or 3 days, how may I know that the chicken, this kind of chicken, has been subjected to this kind of chemical, and I, the consumer, perhaps I cannot buy it? I may leave it for the safety of my life.
For the safety of all lives of consumers, it's advisable that you buy your food from a reliable source. For instance, proper producers are certified and they sell through a certain distribution channel. Also, it's sad that for a long time in a country like Uganda, animal feeds have not been regulated. However, I think currently government is working on regulating the sector, and that is going to be quite good assurance for the consumers. There is a lot of abuse besides the chemicals you have mentioned. Antiviral drugs, the ARVs, have been used not only in chicken but also in pigs to help boost growth. The mechanism is similar. They just help reduce the energy you spend on fighting disease, and you concentrate on growth. However, there is a lot of sensitization. The National Drug Authority is doing quite a good work on that, and we hope with sensitization of the farmers on good agricultural practices.
Is there any way or a technique, me, the consumer, who doesn't know that ARVs ever happen and given to chicken or pigs, can know that this meat is not good?
Unfortunately,
maybe by color or anything, or taste, or...
Unfortunately, by looking at it or testing it with your mouth, you won't be able. It requires lab testing. That's why I insist consumers must purchase their food from certified. I think currently the UNBS mandates every food producer to have the quality mark. That is assurance to you that if you're purchasing from someone who has a Q mark, it means that food is safe for you. It's where
but you have also had some cases where people put those Q marks on their products even when the UNBS has not approved them.
I think that still brings to issues of regulation, and we would really advise the consumers to dig deep.
All right.
Yes.
Dr. Kamgang, in a situation where Ugandans are feeding on chemicals, thinking that they're feeding on food, because you, the farmers, when you give us those products right from the garden, we, the business people in the urban centers, in a means of getting good returns, we tend to opt for other means like chemicals, like preservatives. You must have heard more often that those people who deal in a dairy, milk business, put some chemical to make sure that milk can go up to 5 or 6 days. Yet in the actual sense, milk is supposed to be for 24 hours, if I'm not mistaken. How can Ugandans be saved from this kind of vice?
Thank you, Amon. The vice you are putting before a farmer is not my burden. This is a burden of government. Government, through its regulatory authorities, it needs to be more vigilant, number one. But it's also a responsibility of the consumer. For the farmers that I do represent, I am hearing some of the chemicals you're speaking for the first time. I'm hearing antiretrovirals being used in poultry and pigs for the first time.
Done by farmers.
Done by farmers. This is largely, I think, by traders. The Sekaja
they're also farmers.
Is right
we treat them as farmers before they become businessmen.
Yes. This is. I am speaking now based on the representation that I come here for. We are talking of a typical Kamganga who has 10 milking cows. And he gets his 20, 40, 100 liters and delivers at the curing center in Rwanyangwe. And then the curing center, the corrector of the milk, does exactly, because I deliver my milk fresh.
But from also a typical Kamganga, who is in that Rwanyangwe village, also puts 10 liters of water in the 40 liters can.
Water is
milk.
Not chemicals,
and boiled water in this case.
Let me tell you.
Boiled water.
Boiled or no boiled, water is not a chemical. But let me tell you something that happens. There is a lactometer at the dairy correction center. And most of the times these correction centers, if the lactometer hits below level of expected value, I think we suffer different constraints as farmers, and not necessarily adulteration. So because the correction center, if I put water, it is not milk that is going to get access to a Kampala people. It's probably the one that I'm selling within the trading center in Rwanyangwe. But the one I deliver on the correction center, on the dairy, the lactometer will hit and my milk will be rejected. So we don't attempt that. The most potential problem that could happen at a farmer level in terms of chemicals is indeed antibiotics, because we do treat animals for certain diseases. So when you inject a cow, essentially the recommendation is say you should have some specific minimum of period when you don't milk and mix the milk with the other milk. But most of our farmers will do that. So that one is legitimate. Now, what do we need to do? What we need to do in this case, I have said, government must scale up. And actually, I have a recommendation, which I think the quality control bureaus in the country should impose heavy fines on those who adulterate the products that are supposed to be consumed by innocent consumers. If you get, instead of even blocking them, let them pay, and through these fines, you build the Uganda Bureau of Standards capacity to reach every, because I would imagine if I was the head of Uganda Bureau of Standards, I would have a stock and a database of every producer in the country, of every product that is commercially traded. This would be able to help me in traceability. Who is the source of what product that is contaminated in the country, and then prevent that. Then also consumers must be willing to part with some costs for the need of protecting their own health. If you see which is in the mindset of Ugandans, actually Ugandans, we have a problem as consumers as well. What is cheap is good, but what is cheap, you don't know what makes it cheap. If somebody is making good business, if he is making good business, it's highly unlikely that he's going to adulterate. Those who adulterate, it's because if they do not do it, they will get out of business. Or also they are very unscrupulous individuals. So a farm, when I came to Kampala, the first farm I saw was Ugachik. And for me at home, I am now learning, my friend I have in the studio now, at home, if it's not Ugachik, then I don't buy chicken. If it's not Jessa, I have added some of the other qualities of milk, because reputation is very important. So now, in this perspective, we need a concerted effort. We need the effort of government. Government needs, human health is human capital development. If we do not have a healthy population, we cannot have a healthy economy. So it should be a priority of government to ensure that basically we have health products on the market. And I have also said for Uganda Bureau of Standards, let it impose heavy fines. The adulterators, the counterfeits, be paid by those who do the counterfeit, so that the consumer is protected. If you give them heavy punishment, they will not repeat the mistake. Then the consumers need to be conscious. I would encourage, let me pronounce your company.
Sekaja Agro Farms.
Is Sekaja. I would encourage people to buy from reputable farms like Sekaja Agro Farms. It grows into a big company than having a farm that actually is poisoning our citizens.
Okay. Interesting. This is, yes, in a second, Samakul.
Amon, just to pick up from where you started with, Doctor, you said milk is meant to last 24 hours. But for purposes of food security, it's...
Just using milk as an example.
Yes. Similarly, if you get a lay Ugandan, they will tell you that if you slaughter the chicken, it must be eaten maybe in one day. But it's good to let the population know that milk, if handled and stored in a proper way, can last up to 6 months. Similarly, if you slaughtered your chicken in the right way and handled it well, then it can stay for up to 6 months. So that will help in food security. One of the challenges we have is we produce, let's say for the dairy farmers, during rainy seasons, there is plenty of pasture. The milk prices will fall down because there is surplus. However, if we are able to store this excess produce, handle it well, then we are food secure.
All right.
Thank you.
This is UBC Ground Zero. We're broadcasting live on 98 FM in Kampala. We're also live and clear on UBC Butebo. You can get us on 96.9 FM in Mbale and 98.4 FM in Soroti and 95.5 FM in Arua. We're also live and clear on Western Nile FM, covering the Teso sub-region, Karamojo sub-region, Lango sub-region, and northern parts of this country. We are live from all corners of this country, border to border, city to city, and we're also live and clear on YouTube. Just put UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of this conversation. I'm taking a very short break. When I return, I'm going to get some of your calls on what you think needs to be done to ensure that we have a steady food production as we discuss our topic today, safe food today for for a healthy tomorrow and leave no one behind. This is UBC Ground Zero. I'm coming back in a bit.
This is Ground Zero live on UBC Radio. Stay tuned.
It's hot.
With that state, we didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody showed. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Tune in to Ground Zero on UBC Radio. We discuss politics.
The money we collect as taxes in the country, we lose it in corruption.
Economics.
The 4 economic sectors where their jobs and wealth are: commercial agriculture, industries, services, and ICT.
Education.
The classes which will not need an abridged curriculum are the entry-level classes of P1, Senior 1, and Senior 5.
Culture and religion. And other areas of human interest. Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio. Don't miss.
Welcome back. Ground Zero Season 2 continues.
Welcome back from that very short break. This is UBC Ground Zero. We're broadcasting live on 98 FM UBC Radio in Kampala. We are also live and clear on 97.4 FM in Arua, and we're also live and clear on other radio stations. UBC Butebo, covering the eastern parts of this country. We're also live and clear on Magic 100 FM, covering the central parts of this country. We're also live and clear on Western Nile FM, covering the northern and Western Nile as parts of this country. We are streaming live on YouTube. We just put UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of this conversation. Later on, I will engage in some of your calls on 776-511-426 and you share your opinions or ideas on what you think needs to be done. We've been joined by Chirabo Agnes, is the Executive Director, Food Rights Alliance. You're most welcome to UBC Ground Zero.
Thank you so much, and good morning, listeners. I'm happy to be here. I'm sorry I'm joining late because of similar engagements, World Food Day celebrations.
Interesting. You found us discussing food quality. As someone coming from Food Rights Alliance, what is your opinion about the same?
Actually, at Food Rights Alliance, it's a principle: if it is not safe, it is not food. And that's what I wish to tell our listeners out there. If it is not safe, it isn't food, and that is it. There is no middle ground, there is no compromise. Because actually, when you consume what you think it is food and it is unsafe, it is more dangerous than actually the hunger you would have suffered having not eaten that food. Foodborne diseases are one of the most difficult illnesses to treat. They are devastating, but their occurrences are on a daily basis increasing in Uganda and in Africa. Our food system is becoming very unsafe, and we are the practitioners, and I wish to address every listener here. We all take part in handling food, either pre-production, during production, in harvesting and in handling, processing, transportation, storage, cooking, and even actually eating it. Food becomes unsafe along the entire food system. That's why keeping or making the food safe is every actor's responsibility. For every action, can we be accountable? Can we be considerate? Because The funny thing with food, when I decided to contaminate it on the farm, thinking that I'm pushing it on the market, it is going to find your children at school. The last statistics that I looked at, food-borne illnesses were around 420,000. Those are the reported cases in hospitals. But we know that there are quite so many that are not reported in hospitals. On the farm, farmers, some of the things I don't want to talk about them in the media, because when you talk about them, fun enough, somebody who didn't know it instead starts doing it. But sometimes we have to talk about them to condemn. We know that there are farmers that are using hazardous chemicals to induce drying of grains. In our farming communities, we've seen fellow community members spraying maize to induce drying, spraying beans such that they rush and run to the market. We have seen people who harvest tomatoes and instead spray them with mancozeb as they are taking them to the market. We have seen, we all know that when an animal is sick and you call a veterinary doctor to treat it, there is a period, a minimum period, when that animal is not supposed to be put on the market, but sometimes they say, it seems it will not make it, let us slaughter it. Some animals, when we inject them with antibiotics, we are supposed to retain the products for some time before taking them to the market. But we know farmers, while they are treating the animals, they are milking the milk with those antibiotics, and they are taking them to the market. We know that when maize grain is condemned, not fit for human consumption because of the high levels of aflatoxins, every people, educated and uneducated, say, let us give it to the animals. But with aflatoxins, the moment the grain has aflatoxins, even if you give the aflatoxin to the animal, it is going to remain. You will consume it in the milk, you're going to consume it in the meat, you're going to consume it in the eggs. So, I agree with you, the issues of food safety are very, very critical, just as food security is. Actually, they are more critical because I said if it is not safe, it is not food. When we get after production, how are we handling our produce? How are we storing it? Are you sure that the way you're storing your food, the food is remaining safe at the farm place, but also in the households? We know that some food can survive and be kept safe, but we go and buy it and make it unsafe in our own houses. During COVID 2020, so many of us who have not been in the culture of stocking food, we ended up stocking food, a lot of food, but we had not created a space in our houses sufficient and adequate for food storage. So the food that was maybe safe on the shop where you bought it, we put it in the houses and we made it unsafe. I want to get off this by commenting about processing. Processing is another area where our food is getting terribly contaminated and very hazardous for human consumption. As we speak now, we know that in every market across the country, there are processing machines grinding ground nuts. As we talk now, in every market, those machines are there. They are grinding ground nuts. Binyebwa, amaido. And you will talk to the person managing that machine. He's going to tell you that in a week I can change the motor 3 times. I change parts 3 times. Not because they are broken down, but because they have wear down. You ask yourselves, those machines, it was big, it has become very small. Where has the particles gone? The particles have ended up in the ground nuts. Now, ground nuts is very hazardous. It's becoming a hazardous food, processed ground nuts. Because one, the contamination levels of aflatoxin in groundnuts are very high. And as if that is not enough, the processing process also is adding the metal to the aflatoxin. That's why liver cancer, stomach cancer is on the rise because of the kind of unsafe food that we eat. Some food is unsafe again because of the sugars and the saturated fats that are added to these foods. The fizzy drinks, and it is unfortunate that these unsafe food are advertised using babies, adding babies' pictures on the schools. And you see that our children, the levels of obesity and overweight is growing so fast among children because of the unsafe food, sugar-sweetened beverages, the fatty foods that are, they use babies to advertise these foods. So as we mark World Food Day, if it is not safe, it is not food. Unfortunately, a lot of food in our food system, especially in the urban areas, is unsafe for consumption.
Madam Agnes, whose responsibility? Who is in charge of this? Remember, we are in a profit-making society. Do you really expect me, the farmer, to lose 120,000 shillings that I would have generated from my 40 liters of milk because my cows have been immunized against foot and mouth disease today?
Thank you so much. Whose responsibility? One, we have to take a personal responsibility. I have told you, the funny thing with food makes rounds. It moves in rounds. You may think that, yes, you do not want to lose the 40 liters of milk.
For 3 days.
Sorry?
For 3 days has been recommended by the veterinarian.
By the veterinarian. You may not want to lose those liters of milk. And you push it on the market. And from the market, it is your mother, it is your brother, it is your children in school that milk ends up in there. And if it doesn't end in there, okay, for milk the journey may be short, that it may not come back to you. For maize, it may come back to you in your same plate. I have told you that once food is not safe, it isn't food. And two, after taking personal responsibility, one of the things that we are suffering as a country is the weak governance systems of our food system. Even the governance system is very weak. When we made the treatment of animals a private venture, we thought that government is taking away its responsibility to the private individuals who own the animals. But the food belongs to government because it is government's duty to keep its population safe. Previously, it was communal vaccination. It was communal treating the dipping of the animals. The technical person, the vet in the area, designated, well-trained, who knew what he or she was doing, was the one mixing the what are they called? The calcides in the right quantities and then administer them very well. And then those were controls. So even him or her knew which animals. But now I'm in Bunamwaya, my home village. That's where my zero grazing animal is. My vet doctor, the friend I went to school with, is in Gayaza. I call him or her, she comes, treats the animal and goes away. We had a communal system of managing animals. Okay? So it's a governance issue, but it is also a personal responsibility issue. But I'm here to tell you, you may push and sell food on the market, but you will lose the money that you thought you're going to save. Because where the food is going to end, it is going to make the people sick, and they are going to come back to you. So the money you sold in the milk, thinking that you're not going to lose it, you're going to lose it, plus because treatment is more expensive than protection.
Interesting. Thank you, Jerabo, for joining us and for the very good explanation about food quality. If it is not food, if it is not safe, it is not food. Gentlemen and the lady, allow me take another direction of innovation. You know, we have to tap into the market, but when we have improvised, but also improved. What are some of the innovations that we have adopted as a country, or what are those that we can, if we have not, that we can tap into the opportunities that we see in agriculture? Let me start with Dr. Kamganga. Innovations in as far as agriculture is concerned.
I will touch the production-oriented innovations. I have strong trust in my two colleagues to handle the other upper part of the value chain. For the sake of the theme, safe
food today,
for
healthy tomorrow. And leaving no one behind.
Leaving no one behind. Especially leaving no one behind. I first confess my admiration for the FRA slogan of if it's not safe, it's not food. Indeed, if it's not safe, it is poison. I like that. And I think the entire country and the globe touches it, because we have had discoveries that actually even the international food industry is contaminating our food with unfit for consumption chemicals and the like. But going to your question, about innovations in agriculture and their contribution to the theme, I concentrate to leaving no one behind. Inclusive food access, food accessibility, and food affordability. The technologies that enable us to produce, when I say us, I mean us, the farmers. The technologies, the innovations that enable us, the farmers, to produce food for everyone, they are very essential and welcome. There are different innovations that are taking place. The digital innovations, as we speak, we know that in Africa, and specifically Uganda as a country, we have highest level of penetration of digital devices, specifically our phones. And these phones have enabled a number of things. One is know-how, sharing of know-how. I can have a feeling of the passionate submission by the FRA executive director has reached through a similar ICT device. This is radio. Then those who are on YouTube, they are following the submission to know there are some things she has submitted. And my colleague here, who was with me from the beginning, they submitted that I didn't know about the contamination. So this kind of devices, and you in the media, I think you should encourage more utilization of this technology to get that this know-how on how to produce, know-how on how to preserve, know-how on how to process, know-how on how to market, etc. So these technologies are very essential. Then there are technologies that we need to adapt from our scientists. I already mentioned the NARO, National Agricultural Research Organization. It has a dedicated team of people who are looking at early maturing varieties of crops. They are also looking at early growing animal species. high productive species. Those technologies indeed are very essential and critical in the production of safe, accessible, and affordable food across the globe.
Okay. Dr. Mukuri, innovations?
Just to add on to a bit of production in the poultry sector, it comes with a bit of high investment, but using environmentally controlled houses or new technologies where we can say Amon is a farmer, he's working at UBC, he has his small chicken house, and there is a device that can monitor the condition in the house and relay the information to your phone such that you can monitor what is happening. And then when it comes to processing, I'll talk more on the animal food side. Slaughtered animals like chicken, there are innovations of slaughter systems that minimize contact between humans and the food. That ensures that we don't contaminate the food through touching it. I think to allay a little bit of fears that my colleague mentioned, that the metals are replaced. In some processing plants, let's say in a feed mill, there are hammer mills that get rubbed off. However, there is technology that uses magnets at some point that pick out most of the, or almost all the metal such that it doesn't go. Okay. And then at the end of the processing line, magnets can be used to check for the final produce. Right. Now, the challenge we have today, like we've mentioned earlier, most of the food industry is not regulated. She mentioned that all the markets grind GNATs, but if you went to all the major markets in Kampala, Kalerwe, Nakasero, Natete, you will get people slaughtering high volumes of chicken, which end up in one of the biggest hotels in Kampala, and they are slaughtering them with a saucepan and in a dirty environment. So there is a lot for us to do to sensitize the consumers, sensitize the animal food handlers on how to make the food safe.
Okay. All right. Interesting. We're in the second hour of this program, and it is always a rush hour. We have a few minutes to end this very edition, but we have a number of issues that we need to address. Cherao, innovations. The elites think, many people think that it is the role of the elites who have gone to school to think and come up with new ideas to help the farmer, because the farmer has a traditional means of agriculture. Whose responsibility to involve in or come up with new innovations?
Actually, you have put it where exactly I wanted to put it, is that innovation is not necessarily new, and innovation is not restricted to the elites. The farmers in Africa and the farmers in Uganda have been innovative, very, very innovative since time memorial. They confront the challenges that confront their activities. And because the systems are not that fluent to reach out to them all the time, they have improvised and innovated some solutions. The beauty about most of the farmers' solutions, the good ones, are nature-based, which is also very, very important. They are nature-based. They have innovated integrated pest management systems that more often synthetic chemical free. We have seen them doing that. And the traditional African communities have been very, very innovative on how to deal with pests and diseases. Of course, sometimes it's a little difficult because it is heavy labor, and we haven't researched and invested in that. It remains the state duty to ensure that we foster innovation within our own agriculture, and really to grow these innovations it has been a little difficult because our research is mainly funded externally and there are no free lunches. So whoever gives us money wants you to tailor your proposed action into their own way, and sometimes you wonder why they don't write the proposals themselves and give us to implement. So we get constrained, but the government has to invest. We need our own investment in our researchers such that we come up with context-specific innovations, and even making technologies available and affordable, because food-graded technologies are available. If only government would work out ways of making them accessible and affordable and regulate the system.
Interesting. I always treat three issues as the same. Innovation to go with value addition and industrialization. It is becoming more challenging to have value addition, and the president of this country has been campaigning for this for some time. Dr. Kamgang, is it possible to tap into the opportunities of value addition, or it is something that we need to give it some time, especially in agriculture? Because it is the value addition that will determine the level or the value of export that we give to the other countries, or our position in as far as export substitution strategy is concerned.
Thank you. The current National Development Plan, Development Plan 3, thematically focuses on agro-industrialization, and because the plan affects resource allocation, the last 3 consecutive budgets have been focusing on agro-industrialization, and emphasis, therefore, which I take to be synonymous with value addition in simple terms, but is more complex than that. And to answer your question, yes, I think we have seen a number of, if we are going to do a basic survey, we have seen a number of increase in a number of value-adding facilities in the milk industry. In the last, in NDP3 alone, the distribution of cans, the installation of milk cooling plants, not necessarily the big processing plants, which we would be seeing that are basically championed by the farmers. But in this, we have also seen in the grain sector a number of plants that have been supported. Some of my district farmers associations have been supported with equipment to do grain processing. We have seen equipment given for coffee hullers and the like. So basing on the focus of the country, the focus of government on agro-industry, on the national plan 3, there are opportunities being exploited, but it's a drop in the ocean, knowing that we had a tradition of producing raw materials and exporting raw materials. Okay. And now the head of state is focusing on, indeed, as you call it, import substitution, building a domestic industry capacity. So from the best we are starting in, we need to double. Actually, if by all means the National Plan 4 indeed prioritizes agro-industrialization, the market problem and the quality issue would definitely go down, reduce. The problem will reduce because you are extending the shelf life of the agricultural products, which can meet the markets as you need them. So I think there are plenty of opportunities to tap.
All right. Dr. Mkode?
My colleagues have said most of it. All just to add on it is there are already existing systems Like for Uganda, if we look at the Uganda National Bureau of Standards quality mark, it ensures that food is safe. Then for large-scale producers, also to have access to the broader market, we can embrace systems like the food safety management system, which at Sekaja Agro Farms we are striving to attain. That ensures that the food, right from what you use to produce during the handling and to the final consumer, is handled in a way that it doesn't cause any adverse effect. Also looking at small scale, it's more looking, let's say for grain farmers, instead of hurrying to sell your produce or storing it in sacks, we can sensitize them and make sure they handle it well and have access, because if the product is good quality, then it fetches more money.
Okay. Chirabo, I am a Christian. And there is a Bible verse that I like most. When I was referring to the false prophets, that you shall know the false prophets by their fruits. Borrowing the same verse in as far as industrialization is concerned in Uganda. We have so many industries, close to 400 plus, but we are not enjoying the fruits of these industries. Don't tell me we have forest industrialization in Uganda.
Two things that orchestrate industrialization. Number one, quality, and especially agro-industrialization, food-based industrialization. Quality is number one thing. Number two is quality. Number three is quality. Then number four is to really prosper and leverage on the so many opportunities. We must be product focused and not enterprise focused or commodity focused. The challenge that we are having currently now in our agro-industrialization agenda, we are still very traditional and commodity focused. And yet when you choose to walk the path of agro-industrialization, your biggest motivation should be the market. And to win a market share, you don't win a market share by a commodity. In marketing, market is product oriented. When you look at our agro-industry, we have more than 10 priority commodities and not products. When you look at our export promotion strategy, more than 10 commodities are not products. When you look at our parish development model, more than 10 commodities, not products. You look at the agriculture sector strategic investment plan, more than 10 commodities and not products. You cannot industrialize in commodities. You industrialize in products. And then you align all your efforts, your finances, your technology, your technicalities, your wisdom, your will, your marketing, your defense, your security. You align all your machinery on mastering your products and then claim a market share, and then you achieve the backward and forward linkages. Okay. So with those two still hanging in balance, we still have a long way to go. You started by a biblical verse. I also want to end that note on the biblical verse that the soul is willing but the body is still weak.
All right. 776511426 is the number that you can call now. I'm getting some of 2 to 3 callers, and I'm giving you only seconds because time may not allow me to have many. We are discussing safe food today for a healthy tomorrow. I leave no one behind, and I thought I cannot leave you, the callers, behind. UBC?
Yes, good morning.
A very good morning to you. Your name and where are you calling us from?
This is Helen from Matuga.
Glad that you're in UBC.
Yes, welcome.
Your concern, please?
My concern is on how to, what I know is we are aware that granules are poisonous. Even maize flour is poisonous. Each and everything is almost poisonous. But the challenge is, for the case of maize, at least granules, one may use a mortar to pound and access granules. But the challenge is on the maize flour.
Okay.
But that information is known by most consumers that they are poisonous, but the challenge is the way forward.
Okay. Thank you, Helen, and greetings to the people of Matoga. 776-511-426 is the number that you can call right now. Ground Zero. UBC? Oh, I lost the call. 776-511-426 is the number that you can call now, and you share your idea or you raise your concern for my guests in the studios to address it. A safe food today for a healthy tomorrow. Leave no one behind. UBC. I think I have issues with my phone. I will give you some time to come in the near. Let me get back to the studios. Chirabo, you're the one that is leading this fight. Helen says, what is the way forward?
Okay, the way forward is very clear. You know, with the food safety, there are no shortcuts, and that is partly what has been our problem. I know, following the noise we made during the first lockdown, when a good percentage of the food was declared unfit for human consumption that had been distributed, government moved very fast to certify millers, and they certified around 32 millers. But those 32 millers are not the millers that are providing maize flour across the country. So for me, the decision is one, and it is a painful decision. We know with the food safety, you must make painful decisions. Is banning the fabrication of unsafe maize meals. Let it be a total ban and no compromise whatsoever. So then we are not only moving to certify those that could afford, while the majority of the population is consuming unsafe food. Next time when I get an opportunity to come here, all I'm going to pass over the list of the certified meals. But that's not a solution. That's not a solution. Food safety should not leave anybody behind. We need a ban and ensure that all processing plants, even in the displaced areas, are using food-graded meals to meal safe maize flour. That's my submission.
This is UBC Ground Zero, and I'm glad that you are still part of us. Gentlemen and the lady, allow me change my direction to face our position in the region and global market, starting with the head of farmers. But before, allow me get to this caller. UBC?
Hello.
UBC?
This is Henry Baguma.
Most welcome, sir.
As we celebrate International Food Day, I would like to concentrate on village level. Extension workers, we need some training. People should utilize every little soil place available to plant something. Let every home has some small things, cassava, potato, those type of things, but to be guided so that every home has something planted. I think that's the only way to go over. But otherwise, if we go to modern agriculture, mechanized agriculture, this will require trucks and all this, the country may not move very, very far. We must go back to the village level, and actually we can take advantage of the parish development model to learn from there. Now, can we also have parish agricultural model so that every parish has something it is producing for its family, people and members, and maybe even for commercial. That's my contribution.
Oh, thank you so much, Baguma. Baguma is suggesting that we also have the parish agriculture development model. That is interesting one. UBC?
Hello.
Good morning.
A very good morning to you. Your name and where you're calling us from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Muyenga. This is Martin.
Yeah, okay, you have seconds, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to know how comes again those things also to be acid. Let's say animals. Maybe the machines which they have brought, because now we are in modernization now. Because longer time ago, we are using a mortar, we are using this stone for grinding and whatever. We are not complaining about those other things that they are acid is what. That's what I wanted to know from that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. The last one on this. Ground Zero.
Yes, good morning, Amma.
A very good morning to you.
Yeah, you're talking to Richard from Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to submit my issue. Anyway, mine a bit. I started following this program from start up to now.
Thank you.
Good enough for we are having our president of farmers in the studio right now today. My question goes to him. Right now we are having challenges in all over the country. There's climatic change. There's a lot of drought now. Him as a president, what did he do to convince government at least to make like something like irrigation to other places where, like Karamoja, where we are facing challenges in those areas.
All right.
And the other one is to Madam, as she has spoken about our processing machines. For sure, we know everything we are using, we are not satisfied of it. And
thank you.
Them as leaders, and them as a leaders, what did they do?
Okay.
And it is UNBS who is supposed to deal with all those things, and they are very corrupt.
Thank you. Our time is fast spent. We may not go beyond this. Allow me give only seconds to you, President, and Chirabo, to answer the concerns of the people. Martin says, how did we come to this point of having all these machines that are not going to give the safety of food? That, I think, goes to Chirabo. And Richard says, with the climate change, as the president of farmers, what are you doing? Let me start with the president to answer, but in seconds. Our time is fast spent.
Thank you, Richard. And thank you for listening in. I already mentioned that we are in partnership with the ministry. We have micro irrigation schemes across the country in different spots. Irrigation is a capital intensive infrastructure to establish, and it takes some time before you can reach every farmer. In the 18 sub-regions, we have schemes that are undergoing under piloting, and I am 100% sure with the government commitment. What I do usually is take the concerns like that where you have raised to the Ministry of Agriculture, and then the Minister of Agriculture tables it in Cabinet, and then the Cabinet takes it to Parliament to apportion resource allocation. Okay. So we are doing our job.
Thank you. Chirabo, in seconds.
Food safety is everybody's responsibility. We got here because food safety was not on the agenda. It wasn't a priority. Actually, generally, food wasn't a priority of our governance system.
How come the government is allowing machines that are not promoting food safety?
And that is what I was telling, that food and food safety in particular has not been a governance priority.
Okay.
And this is what we are pushing on the table. And I'm inviting all consumers. We should stand up for our life. By the way, the theme also talks about a healthy life. It is your life alone, and it is everybody's food safety is everybody's responsibility.
Time is really chasing me. The position of Uganda in as far as the region, the continent, and global market is concerned. President, in seconds.
Depending on the food commodity we're looking at, we have great advantages in grains. We can supply the East African and the Comesa region. We have advantages in small livestock like poultry. I am sure the Sekaja can tell that story very well. We have advantages in milk and beef. Democratic Republic of Congo is deficient in beef. Comesa region would take all our pulses, and our neighbor here in Kenya would take our milk. The region imports several thousands of tons of milk from New Zealand and the like. This is the milk that I can provide within the cattle corridor in my own domestic quotas.
Interesting. Dr. Mkure?
Just like my colleague said, we are best positioned in the region because we have plenty of land for crop production, which in turn influences most of the animal production. So looking at, say, Uganda and its surrounding countries, we are able to produce most of the things at a lower cost, agri products, than the neighbors, so it's easier for us to access the export market. However, on the continental and global level, a lot needs to be done with regard to our quality in order for us to access. The market is there, but our quality may not be the best to access those markets. I think we remember when Kenya locked out a lot of our grain because of aflatoxins. So quality is the main impending factor.
It is quality. We do not have a quality culture as a country, but also the infrastructure development that is making our production very costly. It's unfortunate that rice reaches our market from Tanzania when it is cheaper than the rice in Butareja, because of our cost of production is very, very high. And I think we need to look into this, the infrastructure, but also the other supportive technologies to do production. Otherwise, we have it all, but only what we have failed is to harness this potential and turn it into real opportunities.
Oh, interesting. Way forward. Let me start with Dr. Mkure.
I think we need to sensitize the consumers and the producers and the rest of the people involved in the food chain to make sure that food arriving to a consumer that might be you is safe.
Okay. Chirabo, your way forward.
Food safety is everybody's responsibility. We must make sure that our production is safe. We must make sure that we consume nutritious diets and health diets. We must make sure that our production throughout the entire food system does not harm the environment. And we must make sure that our food is our medicine as opposed to our medicine being our food. By the way, today, the 15th of October, is International Rural Women's Day, and the rural women provide 70% of the total agricultural labor force. So today, if you're going to have a meal, thank a rural woman.
Okay. President of the farmers.
Thank you, Amon. My closing argument is to invite the fraternity of actors to provide safe food today and tomorrow for a healthy population. I am looking at this safety of food as a concerted effort, not only for the farmers and not only for the consumers, but also bringing together the ecosystem of actors to ensure that the population is producing, receiving, and consuming a healthy food for the survival of humanity. Thank you very much.
Most welcome, and that makes us reach the end of this edition of Ground Zero. I wish I can put my clock a bit back and have this discussion continue, but I believe that we shall have more time to discuss this because it helps me and you and every Ugandan and those in the region, continent, and entire world, because what we give to the world is much important, and as one of the discussants says, if it is not safe, it is not food. So make sure, take it as a personal responsibility that what you've put on the market, what you have put on your mudala, what you have put in your shop, what you have put in anything for the people to consume is safe, because one day it will come back to your plate and you will eat it yourself. I must thank you, the guests, for sparing time to speak to the people of Uganda. Dr. Kamuganga Dick, the president of Uganda National Farmers Federation, thank you for sparing time to talk to the people of Uganda. Dr. Mkure Samuel, technical operations manager from Sekaja Agro Farms Limited. And thank you so much, Cherabo Agnes, the Executive Director, Food Rights Alliance, and all you, the callers, and especially you, the listener, and those who have been following us online. This is UBC, and we keep educating and inspiring you, the people of Uganda. Tomorrow, 16th October 2020, we're going to join the world to celebrate World Food Day, and the venue is going to be at National Crop Research Resources and Research Institute, Namlonge. If you can be there, and wherever you are, be part of this kind of celebration. And I must wish the people, I must wish happy day and great celebrations to you, all the females in the rural settings. We really celebrate you, and may you enjoy this day, because this is your day. At UBC, wish you all the best, and from all of us at UBC, we love you and wish you what you're wishing us, but keep educating, keep inspiring Uganda, and keep developing this country, because we are not going to have another country besides this. One day you are going to be blamed of your actions, either by your children or the people that you harm. Make sure that your safety of your neighbor is in your hands. For God and my country, I'm Paide Amon Obtega. Allow me now to sign out.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody showed. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer senior system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.